Hey there. So just about every Christmas, at least when I was listening to him, radio legend Jonathan Green, Milwaukee radio legend, whenever anyone would say they had a live tree in their house, he would attempt to correct them and say, no, you have a dying tree in your house. Now, that may not sound very much in the Christmas spirit, grant you, but I do get where Jonathan Green was coming from on that. In fact, he was right. Once you cut down a tree, you have severed it from its roots, thereby you have severed it from its life source. Oh, you can sustain it by watering it, for a few weeks, but that's the horticultural equivalent of life support. And if you take the tree off that life support, it will die. And the reality is, even if you continue watering, at some point, it will die. My dad pointed out to me that human beings are the same way. Now, what he said is, we start dying the minute we're born. Dad was a little off the mark with that. Once we reach maturity, and that can be anywhere from 18 to 25 years old, in other words, when we stop growing, we do start dying, physically. Now, we can do things to prolong that, lead a healthy lifestyle, that sort of thing. But ultimately, we reach the end. If we're blessed, that process takes 6, 7, heck, maybe 8 decades these days. But it is inevitable. It's also true of relationships. They are living organisms. Our relationships with others and our relationship with God. A marriage is either growing or dying. And we don't like to think about that. People, oh, we're holding steady. No, really you're not. No, you're not. You're either growing closer to one another, and I would argue that really happens when you are both growing closer to God, and then you can't help but growing closer to one another. If you're doing this, God's at the top here, and you're both growing closer to God, you're also growing closer to one another. If you're not, there really is no holding steady. It tends to be true in all human relationships, and it's also true in our relationship with God. Each day we should reflect Christ more than the day before, love Christ more than the day before, and want to love him more than we did yesterday. Paul refers to this in Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to attest and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Salvation, being saved, accepting Jesus Christ, that he came as a child, lived a humble life, died a brutal death for us to bridge the gap between God and us created by original sin. And when you accept all of that in your heart and Jesus lives here, you are saved. That is a one-time event. Sanctification is a forever event. That is, you becoming more Christ-like, you growing in Christ. If you're not, you're growing away from God. Those are the options. There's no holding steady in your relationship with God any more than there is in marriage. It's just a reality. So how do you know? Well, a dying tree can't yield fruit. You can't yield fruit if you are not in a growing relationship with God. The fruit of the Spirit that Paul talks about in Galatians 5:22-23. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Check your fruit. Other people will notice your fruit. Christmas season is a great time to do this as we are celebrating the arrival of Christ on earth. Do an assessment of your relationship with him. And if there are issues, how do you grow that? Well, what's the secret to growing a healthy relationship among humans? You have to work at it. A husband and wife need to want to spend time with one another, want to serve one another more than they are served, love one another more than they are served. It's the same thing with God. He wants to be in a close relationship with you. He wants you to spend time with him. If you're not spending some morning time talking to God, devotions, reading the Word, praying, somehow attending worship either in person or online, you can't have a healthy relationship with your spouse if you never see each other, never talk to each other. Same thing is true with God. You are either growing in your relationship with God or it is dying. I ask you this Christmas season, take a look and see what you find. God bless.